Today, every day, small cap investors visit Agoracom knowing this is the day to discover the world's next great company, to have their dreams come true. That's why I take to the open road, to find them, to tell their stories, to engage them, to bring them to life, because they want to connect with you from your office, your phone, your home, anywhere. Agoracom, find your dream.
Welcome to CEO Interviews, a production of Agoracom in which we take the time to interview CEOs and executives of small cap public companies. With us today, I'm happy to have again James Briscoe. He's President, CEO, amongst other things, at Liberty Star Uranium and Metals Corp. The company trades under the stock symbol LBSR, and you can find them on the web at libertystaruranium.com, as well as right on Agoracom by punching their stock symbol or their name to get all the information you need to do your due diligence. Now, for those of you who are new to the story, Liberty Star's premier property, the Hay Mountain project for porphyry copper, gold, moly, and other associated metals, including cobalt, is in southeast Arizona's Cochise County, which hosts several substantial copper mines. The Hay Mountain project is in the famous Tombstone district. The company has completed a thorough array of surface and airborne studies and is seeking funding to drill up to 10 promising targets. That's just a start. Important year-end stories for Liberty Star highlighting just how attractive this project include: one, the addition of more claims the company has sought for quite a while, 5 years or more actually, due to Arizona State land due to inexplicable reasons. Secondly, the public release of the Hay Mountain technical report by the consulting group, the very famous consulting group SRK, which is along the lines of Canada's 43101 standards. And finally, a renewed emphasis on Hay Mountain's position within the United States Geological Survey's Great Cluster. I'm saying that with air quotes, great cluster of copper resources, pretty much centered on southeast Arizona, western New Mexico, and northern Mexico. James, before we get to the Q&A, welcome back.
Thank you, George. It's always a pleasure talking with you and entertaining for me and hopefully for our readers, listeners. So great to be back.
And a belated happy Thanksgiving to you, your family, and everybody at the Liberty Star Uranium family, as well as all Liberty Star shareholders.
Thank you.
You released the news that the Hay Mountain project nearly doubled in size. Tell us more about the new holdings and why you did that.
Well, when we first started on this project, and when I engaged SRK to review it and give me some advice, I estimated that it was going to take about a year and about $1 million. I did not clearly understand the bureaucracy of the Arizona State Land Department and their delays. So it has taken almost 10 years and almost $10 million. And that's unfortunately a difficult pill to swallow, but there wasn't anything that I could do about it other than walk away from what may be a gigantic porphyry copper system. So after in October, we suddenly got an okay on our application for several sections or square miles of land that we've been trying to get for in excess of 5 years. Approximately on a Saturday Saturday morning at 9 a.m. in the middle of October, by mail courier, no less, with a signature from the Arizona State Land Department Minerals Division. And they told us that we had been, or the document said we had been given these sections of land, these mineral applications. And so we immediately signed them, returned them. They sent us a bill for the land, which is not inconsequential. but this increased our land position to almost double, or to about 23 square miles. This included a Carlin-style gold zone covering it. We don't know for sure how big it is, but at least a square mile. And the gold is in intensely silicified limestones with no other indication, save a little bit of iron staining, pretty typical of Carlin. I was there when Carlin was just opened up, so I'm quite familiar with them. Drilling in the 1970s by two junior exploration companies, which we had nothing to do with, resulted in two 10-foot zones of 1 ounce gold in two different core holes. Geochemical samples and drilling of metal anomalies, including the geochemical sampling and some drilling of various metal anomalies, including the porphyry copper zone, which we are now working, were executed. Now, we didn't actually drill into that porphyry zone because it was not well defined at that juncture. The gold zones are common in the proximity to porphyry copper bodies, and the corollaries would be Mercer gold mines adjacent to the Bingham Canyon porphyry copper zone. Now that mineral at Mercer actually resulted in the discovery of the Bingham Canyon zone rather than vice versa. So the Hay Mountain porphyry copper zone appears to be about 8 miles long and 6 miles wide, very large. We need some more geochemical sampling to fully define the zone, but we do have 16 holes permitted to test strong geophysical and geochemical anomalies suggested by Geotech of Ontario, Canada, using their ZTEM system, and SRK Consulting from the Tucson office. While I'd known about the potential, there was no point in talking about the additional land until we had the state permits, and in fact, that's why we've kept these technical reports secret, because there was a lot of potential competition. The land is now ours, and we can begin exploration when funding is available. Also, we have other Hay Mountain permits, federal and state, paid up. Some of the state permits come due in May, and the remainder due in September and October of next year.
Now, you mentioned SRK Consulting there. They're the authors of the technical report, your 423-101, from a few years back. Why release now? And briefly, what's the recommendation for continued exploration?
Well, that's a good question, and it is critical. We have had quite a number of people come out and look at this, people or geologists in some companies, and completely misinterpret what they are seeing on the ground, because it's quite unlike any of the other discovered bodies where there was either significant green copper oxide showing or some other metal, perhaps precious metals, etc. And they couldn't understand why I was excited about a very large zone in which we couldn't see a whole lot of copper. As a matter of fact, we couldn't see any copper when we first went out there, but it was discovered in 1972 by a very good geologist working on his PhD, Dr. Roger Newell, and he discovered it using mesquite tree samples. Now, Roger, I'm not sure, had any industrial experience at that point, and mesquite tree sampling was not completely new. It had been known for about 20 years, I think, at that juncture. And so I don't think that he realized that the rather widespread, and they were partially widespread because he took the samples over a broad grid, of the importance of this. But because I'd been working for Sarco and other company, well, no, mainly a Sarco, from whom I had just left, I was very familiar with the size potential, and actually this area that Roger got sporadic good copper and molybdenum assays is about the same size as the Mission open pit, which has been operating for about 60 years now and probably has another 30 years or more life in it. So to me, that was very, very exciting. And so I kept my eye on it for pretty close to 30 years before we were able to acquire it and get the money to start on this particular project. So that all important land was then under our control, and there's more going on now in the general area, including the Hermosa project in the Patagonia Mountains and the Rosemont Camp project, and now the Excelsior project. So in many, many decades, this is the most active period. But I wanted to get my friends at the opinion of my friends at SRK to document what it was that I thought we should do, which they agreed on, and wrote that up in their report. Why am I releasing it now? I want to be very clear to those potential buyers that I just didn't come up with some kind of a drunken fluke and wander out there to put in some claims. That this has been a long period of study. It has been reviewed by SRK, one of the preeminent authors of 43101 style reports, and the folks at Geotech, who have pioneered the ZTEM helicopter-borne EM and magnetic surveys, which I saw early on when they were just experimenting with it, and they were still trying to figure out what they had. And I looked at it and then spoke with John Gilbert over the next few days. And I came back and said, I think you've got the best porphyry copper exploration tool I've ever seen, because what you're seeing is the porphyry copper model by Gilbert and David Knoll. So I said, read his paper and then look at that in that manner, which they did. And now they are advertising the ZTEM system as the porphyry finder, because it is gigantically successful. We flew it at the Big Chunk project, got a gigantically significant anomaly over and around the Pebble project, and I suggested that they do that pro bono, because then they could use it forever as a sales tool, and they have, and that's why they are using that. So the results of that survey, which we have published on our website, is very important, and it reveals a very large magnetic anomaly and an EM anomaly, the very types of geophysics that were used to discover the Pima ore deposit and the Mission ore deposit south of Tucson. And so that's where we are, but I wanted to now make public the fact that we have done a meticulous job on the science of exploration on this project. And that's, so we've released the review or the syllabus, and we will make the entire report available to anybody who wants to contact Tracy Myers so she can send it to them.
Jim, before I go on to the next question, I have a follow-up there. How does this compare to the information come from Rosemont, which has that substantial project to the northwest of you?
Now that I've been working on Hay Mountain, which I generally knew the stratigraphy of and the details of skarn deposits, as I cut my teeth on that, first going to work at the Mission Mine, which is a skarn deposit, and used exactly the same kind of geophysics to identify it through moderately thick alluvium, and through many trips around this part of Arizona. So, and including several to Bisbee, including both the open pit and the underground. So I was very familiar with the sediment hosted deposits, and actually my grandparents were ranchers in the Rosemont area, so I'd been hearing about Rosemont since I was a very little boy. But Rosemont is in fact a limestone hosted porphyry copper, and that means that it's quite high grade in places, and when it oxidizes, which it has because it was exposed by erosion, which Hay Mountain was not, it creates vivid green copper oxide. And I've been a proponent of that deposit for years now, and I've probably taken 100 naysayers in my personal vehicle up to Rosemont when Augusta had it, and I'm very familiar with it. What I wasn't familiar with was how much they had, and it turns out that was a $10 billion value measured with extensive drilling and a bankable feasibility study over a square kilometer. We conclude that Hay Mountain, which has a porphyry center of at least a square mile or 2.6 square kilometers, with exactly the same geology and geochemistry, by inference, the potential there would be $26 billion in copper and associated mineralization. At this point, the only geologic, that is only geologic inference, and will have to be defined by diamond core drilling. And because Hay Mountain is so thick and is not tilted and partially eroded as Rosemont is, there's potential for massively increasing that figure and more, given the size of the alteration zone, which is at Hay Mountain is about 8 miles long and 6 miles wide, with a geophysically indicated thickness of 6,000 feet, where the mineralization will get better as we go down towards the basal Paleozoic and the Martin Formation.
Okay, no, thanks for that, because that's important to provide some context as to how Hay Mountain sizes up to that other project right now. That's just that's unbelievable. That's a number that's simply almost too good to believe.
And I've just recently come up with that, because now I've got something very specific and published to go by on Rosemont, and we know, because of the geophysics and geochemistry, how close it is to Hay Mountain.
All right, final question. The great cluster of copper resources. You mentioned it a couple of times, and it is a feature of your last news release. What does it tell you about Hay Mountain, and why Hay Mountain is a great exploration location?
The Great Cluster was ignored until a recent U.S. Geological Survey defined article on the Mexican, what's called the borderlands, the Mexican-U.S. border, in which the geologist author recognized that there was a concentration of important copper gold deposits within this 300-mile wide and 400-mile long concentration. And I didn't even realize it was a concentration because it was a long ways between these copper deposits when you were driving over bad roads and remote areas. But concentration it is, and the important thing as I worked with this was the fact that all of the copper deposits in this area have a limestone skarn association, and so they're all quite high grade, and they generally contain quite a bit of gold and silver and other elements as well. So the deposit at Rosemont Camp is a very good example because it has been carefully drilled out. And a recent publication in a geochemical treatise, a magazine, professional magazine, pointed out the details of the geochemistry of Rosemont, and it turns out it's just exactly like the geochemistry of Hay Mountain. We know that from our thousands and thousands of samples that we've taken at Hay Mountain. And so we can say that with this example, probably all of the mineralized bodies known in this part of Arizona in the copper cluster would have this component and potential for very rich copper and multi-metallic bodies. And some of these things are going to be very, very high grade, which is what we expect at Hay Mountain, and they're going to be hosted in limestones, and that's what the geophysics detects by magnetometry and electromagnetics, which has been used over the last 60 years, not with helicopters, but by dragging wires and so forth. And we know that the Martin Formation, which is at the base of the Paleozoic section, is where the really high grade material that was mined at Bisbee, and fortunes were made by Phelps Dodge and others, including profit funding of Arizona's richest man in the 1940s. So this is going to be gigantically productive. Many people are looking at it now, but we've got what may be a gigantic deposit at Hay Mountain, and is easily compared to the well-known Rosemont Camp.
Final comment, Jim. Safe to say for all your shareholders that even though the process has been slower and it's taken longer, that's actually been a bit of a benefit to shareholders, because it seems as if Hay Mountain keeps getting bigger and bigger.
Yes, that is correct, and in part because we've been able to get land that for a long time seemed to be beyond reach, but also by the fact that we have done extensive geochemical sampling, and we have extensive, very extensive geophysics, which can look down as deeply as 6,000 feet below the surface. So that geophysics is so detailed that we can actually see folded sediments because of their magnetic susceptibility below the surface, and identify which sediments they are. So this is pretty amazing stuff, and I've not ever heard of that before, but we do have it. So we're ready to go.
Jim, a fantastic overview as always, especially with the release of the Hay Mountain Technical Report on November 19th. I want to thank you for taking out the time to answer our questions, talk to your shareholders, and of course, for everybody at home, I'm going to tell you, Jim's given you some great information here. it's probably also spawned some new questions from you. So get to Agoracom, get to the Liberty Star Hub and Forum, post your questions so that Tracy and or Jim can get you the answers you need. But I'm thrilled from what I'm hearing, and even though it's taking a little bit longer than everyone expected, it just seems like things are getting bigger and closer for us, and that's probably a great way to end off 2019. Jim, final parting comments from you.
In college, I belonged to a fraternity whose one of their mantras was, "A great pearl is not had for the asking," and they certainly would have to say that Hay Mountain is emblematic of that. It's been a hellacious amount of work, a lot of disappointments as far as the speed goes, but we have learned that this may be a truly gigantic deposit, maybe as large as the largest in Arizona.
Can't think of a better way to end it. Thank you, Jim. For everyone at home, you've been listening to James Briscoe. I call him Jim here informally during interviews, but you've been listening to James Briscoe, President, CEO, Chief Geologist at Liberty Star Uranium and Metals Corp. Company trades on the stock symbol LBSR. And you can find them on the web at libertystaruranium.com as well as on Agoracom. And I think the new message might be out there: if you're a shareholder of Hudbay, if you're an executive at Hudbay, and do the Rosemont camp and the Hermosa project, Excelsior Mining, Jim is serving notice here that he's boldly stated that he thinks he's got something better. And hopefully that message gets out to everybody in the industry, and Jim will get the joint venture partner he's been seeking for all his shareholders. Thanks everyone for listening. Have a great day, and we'll see you on the next interview. Bye-bye.